You think you know Prince Harry, don't you? The charming royal, the man who made headlines for love, for rebellion, for leaving it all behind. But the Harry we saw on live television last night is not the Harry the world thinks it knows. He broke down in a way that left everyone watching in awe, and what he admitted was far more than anyone expected. It was raw, it was unfiltered, and it was heartbreaking. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to live under the constant glare of the world's most unforgiving spotlight? To have your every move, every word, every emotion analyzed and judged by millions? That's the life of a prince, but Harry's story goes far beyond the public facade. He admitted, in front of cameras and millions of viewers, that he's still struggling more than people know, that some battles he fights are invisible, and yet they leave scars that no crown, no title, no privilege can ever erase. The moment he appeared on live TV, there was a tension in the air you could almost feel. His shoulders were heavy, eyes betraying a storm of emotions that had been building for years. Some might say he looked vulnerable. Others might argue he looked haunted. And perhaps that's the truth, because the man who walked into that studio was not just Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex. He was Harry, the son, the brother, the husband, the father, the man trying to reconcile love and loyalty, duty and freedom, past and future. But what drove him to this point? Was it the relentless media scrutiny, the constant rumors, or the pressures of a royal life he never fully asked for? Or was it something far closer to home? Something that few are willing to talk about openly? He didn't just reveal his struggles with the public. He exposed the cracks in relationships that the world assumed were unshakable. He hinted at truths about Meghan Markle, his wife, the woman he married, the woman the world thinks they know, that will make you question everything you've seen and read. Imagine standing on that stage, knowing that millions are watching, knowing that every word could be dissected, weaponized, misinterpreted. Imagine carrying years of personal struggle, public pressure, family tension, and media frenzy, and then letting it all spill out in a single moment. That's what Harry did, and what he said has sent shockwaves far beyond the studio walls. He spoke of loneliness, of feeling trapped by expectation, of being misunderstood by those closest to him. He admitted that despite leaving the royal household, despite creating a life outside the palace, he still feels the weight of the crown. And not just in the literal sense. It's a weight of responsibility, of expectation, of scrutiny that never really goes away. And in that moment, millions of viewers weren't just watching a prince. They were witnessing a man struggling to reconcile who he is with who the world expects him to be. Yet, as shocking as his vulnerability was, it was what he said about Meghan that truly stunned everyone. Harry's words were careful, deliberate, yet piercing. He didn't just talk about disagreements or misunderstandings. He suggested that the woman who walked down the aisle and promised to stand by him was not always the same person he married, or at least, not the same person the public perceives. That revelation alone raises so many questions. What changed? When did it change? And how much of their story has been hidden behind carefully curated headlines and social media images? We have to pause here and ask ourselves, what does it really mean when someone you love, someone you trusted, someone you shared your life with, feels different than you imagined? How do you navigate that in a world where your private life is anything but private? Harry's admission wasn't just personal, it's universally relatable. Because haven't we all felt at some point that someone we care about is not exactly who we thought they were? But imagine experiencing that on a global stage, where every reaction is magnified, every misunderstanding broadcast to the world. The television cameras caught every nuance. The slight tremor in his voice when he spoke of isolation. The brief but telling pause when he discussed the gap between public perception and private reality. The way his hands moved almost unconsciously, betraying nerves that no smile could hide. There's something powerful about watching someone so high-profile show so much humanity. It breaks down the wall we often put between ourselves and the royals. For a moment, Harry wasn't a prince. He was a person, and his struggles were deeply human. And yet, there's irony here that cannot be ignored. The same world that applauds vulnerability also scrutinizes it, judges it, and often weaponizes it. Every confession, every admission carries risk, especially when it involves the truth about someone as public as Meghan Markle. He didn't simply vent. He revealed patterns, highlighted contradictions, and exposed layers of a relationship that most of us only see snapshots of in tabloids and Instagram posts. This is the reality behind the story, and it is far more complex and far more compelling than most imagine. At this point, you might be asking yourself, why now? Why choose this moment to speak out, to let the world see cracks that have been quietly widening for years? Timing is everything, and Harry's decision to open up was not accidental. It's a calculated, deliberate act, one that balances personal healing with the need to communicate the truth. And in doing so, he invites us not just to watch, but to understand, to empathize, to question our assumptions about love, loyalty, and the cost of living a life under the microscope. So, as we dive deeper into this story, consider this. Every revelation, every emotional beat, every subtle glance Harry gave on live TV carries meaning. Each moment is a piece of a puzzle that, when fully assembled, paints a portrait of a man who is far more complicated than the public persona allows. And every chapter of this story will bring new surprises, contradictions, and insights that will challenge what you think you know about him, about Meghan, and about the pressures of royal life. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The confessions, the revelations, and the unexpected truths Harry revealed weren't just fleeting moments on live television. They were a seismic shift in the narrative, one that forces us to confront uncomfortable realities about family, marriage, and the burdens of fame. And as we begin to peel back the layers, you'll see that this isn't just a story about a prince. It's a story about resilience, heartbreak, and the relentless pursuit of authenticity in a world that rarely allows it. The stage is set, the cameras are rolling, and Harry has just taken the first step in a journey that will leave viewers stunned, questioning, and utterly captivated. And as we move forward, the questions only grow. What are the hidden truths behind the royal walls? How deep does the tension between Harry and Meghan really go? And what will happen when the world finally sees everything Harry has been hiding for years? Have you ever watched someone unravel before your eyes, knowing that everything about them is about to change? That was the moment Harry entered the studio, just minutes before he went live. No one could have prepared for what the world was about to witness. He wasn't just walking onto a stage. He was stepping into a storm he had carried silently for years. Every glance, every breath, every subtle gesture told a story that words alone could never capture. The build-up to that live broadcast wasn't accidental. It was years in the making, a slow crescendo of pressures, expectations, and quiet frustrations that had been mounting ever since Harry could remember. The public sees the fun-loving prince, the man who makes jokes in interviews, the one who waves at cheering crowds. But the private Harry, the one behind the palace gates, is a different story entirely. He has lived under the weight of expectation since birth, and the strain isn't just emotional, it's physical. Imagine living your entire life under a microscope, with millions scrutinizing even your smallest misstep. Every laugh, every gesture, every expression is analyzed and dissected, turned into a headline, a meme, or a story twisted to fit a narrative you didn't write. What most people don't realize is that Harry's life has been a delicate balancing act for decades. As a child, he was constantly aware of the world watching him. As a teenager, he was expected to perform perfectly while grappling with personal loss and public scrutiny. He learned early that showing vulnerability was dangerous, that weakness could be exploited. Yet, despite all of that, he developed an intense need to connect, to feel understood by those closest to him, by his family, and eventually, by the world. And yet, those connections often felt just out of reach. In the weeks leading up to the live TV appearance, Harry had been quietly battling his inner demons. Those closest to him noticed subtle signs, restless nights, moments of irritability, sudden withdrawals from conversations. People who worked with him described a man teetering on the edge, someone who had perfected the art of smiling through pain, of appearing composed while his mind was racing with anxiety. How long could someone carry so much behind the public smile? How long before the walls of composure crack? And then there was Meghan, the woman who brought him love, partnership, and companionship, yet also the tension he had never experienced before. They weren't strangers to conflict, but the intensity of it grew over time, compounded by external pressures. It's said that couples often reveal their true selves under stress, and Harry's marriage has been under constant stress from the moment he said, "I do." The strain wasn't just from the public eye. It was from navigating two worlds that sometimes seemed irreconcilable: the royal traditions he inherited and the modern life he desired. The day of the live broadcast, the palace corridors were unusually quiet. Harry's security team noticed a tension in his gait, a hesitation in his speech. He had gone through this routine countless times before, but something was different this time. It wasn't just nerves. It was the weight of the moment, the understanding that when the cameras turned on, there would be no hiding, no rehearsed smiles, no scripted lines, only truth. And the truth, Harry realized, had a cost. As the clock ticked closer to the live moment, Harry's mind raced through years of memories. He remembered moments of laughter with his brother William, playful childhood games that masked the underlying rivalry. He remembered arguments with staff who didn't understand him, whose well-meaning advice often felt suffocating. He remembered the relentless media, publishing stories that twisted his words, manipulated his image, and created an unrelenting storm of scrutiny. Each memory was a weight, each recollection a burden, and yet, somehow, he carried them forward. The irony, of course, is that the world expects princes to carry burdens with grace and dignity. Yet, behind the polished exterior, Harry's life was a testament to human vulnerability. Even as a public figure with access to resources, comfort, and status, he was not immune to loneliness, doubt, and fear. In fact, the more visible you are, the more isolating life becomes. How do you confide in someone when every word can be twisted? How do you grieve when even your sorrow is public property? Harry's life answers that question in a way few of us can truly understand. Then there were the moments that no one saw, the small, quiet instances that accumulate into something larger. The late-night walks around his estate, the phone calls with close friends, the silent tears in empty rooms. These were private rituals, small attempts to reconcile the immense pressure he lived under. And yet, even those moments were tinged with guilt. Should he be struggling when the world sees him as a prince with everything? Should he feel pain when he has privileges others could only dream of? These contradictions weighed heavily on him. And let's not forget the public expectations. Every smile, every appearance, every charitable engagement comes with invisible demands. You are expected to be joyful, inspirational, and resilient, constantly performing, constantly giving. Yet, human beings are not built for perfection. The gap between appearance and reality grows wider every day, until eventually, something gives. For Harry, that breaking point arrived not in a whisper, but on the stage of a live broadcast, where the world would witness the unraveling. But here's the twist that few understand. Harry didn't stumble. He didn't collapse in confusion. Every admission, every pause, every moment of visible vulnerability was deliberate. He chose to reveal his truth, carefully and painfully, to let people see that even someone born into royalty is human, that even someone with a crown is fragile, that even someone whose life appears glamorous is fighting battles unseen. It's a radical act, because speaking your truth in a world that profits from your silence is terrifying. And yet, Harry did it anyway. Now ask yourself, what drives a man to that point? Is it desperation? Courage? Recklessness? Perhaps it's all of these, and more. It's a reckoning, a moment when you can no longer pretend, a moment when the truth refuses to remain hidden. And as Harry walked onto that set, he carried all of it: grief, frustration, longing, hope, and fear. The camera lights were bright, the studio silent, and the world holding its breath. Moments before the broadcast, he glanced at the producer. No words were exchanged. No instructions needed. He had made a choice to confront the storm he had been weathering privately, to show the world that behind every public smile there is a human heart, and behind every royal title, a person capable of immense vulnerability. And as the cameras rolled, he began to speak. His voice trembled just slightly, betraying the storm beneath. Every pause, every exhale, every glance was magnified. The audience could feel the tension, even through a screen. The buildup had reached its peak, and now there was nowhere to hide. He had crossed the line between private struggle and public confession, and the world was about to witness the beginning of something unforgettable. But just as the first words left his lips, the unexpected happened. An emotion, raw and unfiltered, overtook him. A moment of such intense human honesty that it stopped the show in its tracks, even if only for a heartbeat. And at that precise moment, Harry's world, and the world of everyone watching, would shift forever. What came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming.